Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of From What I Gather, where today we're making the famous angel biscuits that are so light and fluffy, they're like little clouds descended from the heavens, and everyone's gonna love them. So let's get started. Let's make the angel biscuits, and this is a really cool recipe that uses two different leavening agents. We're going to use baking powder, which is in pretty much all biscuit recipes, but in these we're also going to add in yeast. And what that's going to do is make these biscuits puff up and give them a real light and airy texture that's something like 50% biscuit, 50% roll, but it's going to be 100% awesome when you put it in your mouth. Oh yeah! And I'm going to begin by mixing together all my dry ingredients. And this is a pretty big recipe, but that's good because these things are going to go fast. So I've got 5 cups of all-purpose flour, to which I'm going to stir in 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 3 tablespoons of sugar, and a big old pinch of salt. And I'm just gonna mix those together. And actually, since I'm using instant yeast today, I don't need to proof this, and I can just mix this right in with my dry ingredients. The recipe calls for a half a cup of butter and a half a cup of shortening, both ice cold. So I've got a stick of butter that's been chilling out in my freezer for about 30 minutes, and I've cut it into some cubes to make it nice and manageable. But I'm not going to be using shortening today because I happen to have some rendered bear fat. Now, it might sound odd, but this is absolutely some of the best stuff for baking all kinds of pastries. Just take a look at how clean and pure that is. And I rendered this from a nice fall bear that had been feeding on berries, so the whole animal tasted great, including the fat. So I'm really excited to be using it here today. So I'm going to toss the butter and the bear fat in here to toss those cubes around a little, keep them separate. And then I got the nice icy cold bear fat. I'll break that up a little as well. And then, using a pastry knife or a couple of forks, I'll cut that in until this whole thing has kind of the texture of cornmeal. You can use a food processor to do this really quickly, but you might recall that I fried my food processor back in a chicken sausage making incident, so we're going manual today. That looks pretty good. And now it's time to bring in the wet ingredient, which is 2.5 cups of buttermilk. Now, whole fat buttermilk is ideal, but if you can only get low fat buttermilk, it's gonna work just fine. So I'll just kind of start adding that in slowly. I'll kind of fold it, and cut it. Fold it, and cut a little bit. Don't want to beat the heck out of it. But I don't want the dry stuff down on the bottom either, so just as soon as it all comes together, I'm going to stop messing with it. That looks pretty good. It's a nice soft dough. It's just come together. And now, another unique part about this recipe is that I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap and put it out into the refrigerator for at least a day and up to 5 days. This is a really good recipe if you're planning a big dinner, maybe around the holidays, and you're going to be really busy. You can make this dough days and days in advance and then just pop it out and bake it when you're ready. On the downside, I do got to wait at least a day before I can eat these. Perfect. Let's make some biscuits. Now, I'll get a floured work surface here. I have my oven preheating to 400 degrees, and it should be ready by the time I get these ready to go. Now I'll just turn my dough out onto the work surface, punch it together. It's pretty sticky right now still. Now, a little flour over the top. And I'm just gonna knead this a few times to get it all mixed up real well. But I don't want to overwork it. These will get chewy. That should be good. And now I'm going to begin by kind of pressing down here. Then gently roll it a couple of times each way. And now I like to fold it once this way and then again to create some layers. And we'll gently roll that out. Actually, at this point I really prefer to just press it down with my hands. And then I'm going to go one more time, fold this way and this way to create some more layers. And now we'll get ready to cut these biscuits. I'm going to make some pretty big biscuits here, so I'm going to keep this fairly thick, about a 1/2 inch. I've got a little flour over here for flouring my biscuit cutter. And I'll just dip her in there. And then punch out my biscuits. Just straight down. That'll pop right out of there that time. Nice. Reflour. Punch out another one. That thing's got about the weakest darn handle. Worthless. Now I'll gather this up, re-roll it, make a few more. Now most of the time, you're going to find these angel biscuits cooked in a cast iron skillet like this. And they're going to kind of puff up and come together and make like a big pull-apart biscuit that is really pretty and delicious. But you can also cook these on a baking sheet if you want them to stay round and get crispy edges all the way around. I'm going to go ahead and do both so you can see the difference. So I'm going to put a little butter all around my cast iron. And then we're just gonna drop these puppies right in there. Now usually these are also brushed with some melted butter before I pop them in the oven, but this time I want to make them kind of shiny and golden. So I'm going to use an egg wash instead. So I'll just beat up 1 egg and then brush that right onto the surface of these guys right before I pop them in the oven. And now these go in my 400-degree oven for 18 to 20 minutes or until they get nice and golden brown. Oh my goodness! Those look great! Now I gotta let those cool a little while before I can get into them, but they smell so good, I can hardly wait. So I've got our cast iron cooked angel biscuits here. They're beautiful and golden and shiny. And then we've got these over here that were cooked on the baking sheet. These puffed up and are a little browner, and the main difference is that these are going to be golden brown all the way around the edges, and these are going to be soft and tender in the edges. Now let's see how we did. This thing looks absolutely beautiful, light as a feather, and it's still nice and warm. Ooh-wee! Very nice. I'll just hit that with a little soft butter. Oh my goodness. And of course, some nice, delicious honey. Ooh. Get a look at that. Oh. Oh wow. Oh, it's so good. This is not like a real buttery, flaky buttermilk biscuit. These are light and airy, and they just got a wonderful texture that I think that calling them a cross between a biscuit and a roll kind of does them a disservice. They're really unique and a thing all unto themselves, and they're absolutely delicious. These will work perfectly for making little sandwiches after they cool down, because they got the texture that's going to hold together without crumbling apart. So good. Well, I really hope you try this recipe, and I know you're going to love it. And if you do, please like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.